SEO consultant and WordPress agency owner. Now, I've known Rebecca for the last couple of years, but we've been working together for the last couple of months, specifically to help us at iThemes.com with our SEO strategy. And I'm excited for today, and I know you will be too, as Rebecca talks about free SEO tools and how to use them. So if we have time at the end of the broadcast, we'll have some questions for Rebecca, like we did yesterday. And if you're not over at iThemeschat.com, you won't be able to participate in the chat and the questions. So be sure to go over to iThemeschat.com and log in to make sure you can ask your questions. Additionally, at the bottom of that page and every day, if you're signed up for these webinars, you'll get a link to the slides and the replay. There are no handouts, but there'll be a link to the slides and the replay afterwards. So Rebecca, we're ready to learn. We're ready to take notes and see all the great tools that you suggest we use and how to use them.
Awesome. Thanks so much, and welcome everybody to the second day of SEO Week. For those of you who were with us yesterday, I want to just recap a few things that we talked about for any newcomers that we have today, so just bear with me for a few minutes. Yesterday's presentation, we got started with the theories and my views of SEO and some basic tactics that I use for getting started. And my number one principle that I gave everyone to really try to put into their process was to think like Google, and to remember that quality matters to Google, and what Google really wants is high quality content and a method to easily find it, so it really knows what content on your website to bring back into search for a given phrase or keyword, and having a very positive user experience for the searchers that Google's sending over to your website or to your blog. Those are the principles by which I live. Those are the principles by which I optimize my website and websites for my clients, and it has been very successful for over a decade. And that's what we went through yesterday, and we're going to continue to use that today as we walk through some of the free tools that I use. And the reason we're using free is because I like free. So I don't ever want to encourage anyone to spend money unless they don't have to. So while there's a lot of paid tools out there, today we're just going to focus on free tools. So one thing to keep in mind is that SEO tools are everywhere. I have used certain tools for a long time, and by that I mean years, and then there's new tools on the market today that I will use as well, and I've built up a list that I'm going to go through with you today, and then we're going to jump into live on the internet, and we're going to start reviewing some of the tools and actual details for websites, and kind of just the things that I look for when I'm doing some investigative work, both in competitive research and reviewing my own website. I want to remind you that SEO is not magic, it is not voodoo, it is something that everyone can obtain. And when I say that, I want you to remember that as we look at some real-world examples today, because these are people I competed with in the past, and these are people I won. And they're very large corporations that have marketing budgets and marketing teams and SEO teams, and that's why I use them, because I think it's fun, because I really want you to remember today that even if you're a single person or you have a low budget, or you're just starting to learn SEO with a lot of education on your part and effort and drive, you can beat them. You can beat anybody. You just need to put the right process and the tools in place to get it done. Okay, so I like free tools. I've been using them for years, and I stick with what I know. I've tried other ones, and I've had people suggest tools to me. I've had plugin and app and software developers send me free accounts to try it out, and granted some of them are great, but guess what? I find myself going back to the same old tools I've used forever and the ones that I love. And the reason I do that is because I can really get in and dig into the content. I can see more of what's available by going to the raw data than by using a tool that kind of assembles data together at a high level for me. I like to investigate, I like to do research, I like to explore. And when you're using the actual raw data that's available to you, you can explore far more than what you can if you buy a tool that just aggregates data up for you. And I think that some of those tools give you a very false sense of security, where they'll grade your page and they'll give you like a score of 95 or something, and you think that you're great and you should be doing great on the internet with search, and really you've got errors. So that is another reason why I kind of stay away from them. But don't be afraid of tools. Just know that you have to take any data that you receive with a grain of salt, and you need to validate it against other data that's available to you. And then you're going to, after a while, have a gut feeling for what that data means and what to do with it. And after doing this for a really long time, I do have a gut feeling for a lot of things, whether it be who's ranking on page 1 and can I win, or if the search volume that Google's giving me just doesn't seem right. So you'll get there with a little bit more time and effort and activity on your part. Okay, so my favorite tools. I have 3 slides of tools, and I'm starting with the ones that I use all of the time. Again, I'm going to show you these in presentation slides, and particularly so you have a takeaway afterwards with the slides that you can download from SlideShare, but then we'll actually go into some tools. First and foremost, I have always used Google Analytics. Google Analytics shows what happens on your website, right? It's a free tool that's readily available. All you have to do is drop some code that they give you into your website or your WordPress theme, and you're good to go. You've got this data getting collected for you. It shows where people come from. Sometimes it shows you what they search for. It shows social media versus direct links into your site. It shows your top pages and landing pages and where people exit. There's so much information there, it can be overwhelming, and I personally get sucked into the real-time activity where I can see a number of people moving through my website with their real-time analysis. Yeah, if you don't have Google Analytics on your website or your blog, sign up today and get that data going. After about 30 days, you'll have enough data to really start to see some trends, and it'll provide some real value to you. My next favorite search tool, or excuse me, data tool, which I use all of the time, is Google Search Console. If I have an SEO client, the first thing that I'm going to ask them is not do you have Google Analytics, but do you have an account with Google Search Console? This used to be called Webmaster Tools. The reason I love this tool so much is because it gives you data on what happens inside Google. Not necessarily what happens on your website, but what is happening in the search engine results page. Google Analytics can't give you that data, but this tool can. And this is an account that a lot of people don't have, and they're missing out on really, really valuable data. And I'm going to show you some of that data today and show you just how powerful it can be if you use it in the right way. Google Search Suggestions, that is when you go to type in a search term inside the Google search box and it starts automatically populating results for you. Again, when you're doing keyword research, I talked about this yesterday, that's a powerful tool because guess what? Guess what that tells you? It means Google's leading people down a path that they want for search phrases. Those search phrases, if they're relevant to what you do, your service, your product offering, are invaluable to you, and you really need to take note of those and make sure that they are being weaved into your seed list that you create for keyword research, and they're potentially getting brought into your blog or your website. Another favorite, which I have to really have some good data, is Google AdWords. Just a cautionary note, I do not do pay-per-click. I do not use pay-per-click or sell pay-per-click services for our agency. I view pay-per-click as cocaine for marketers. You spend a bunch of money and it's gone and you have nothing residual to show for it besides a hangover. I don't like it. That's why I've always focused on organic search and really trying to optimize the website, because that provides long-term value. It's not a quick hit that's gone tomorrow. It's something that you invest in over time. And while I don't like pay-per-click, I do use Google's AdWord tool, which sells pay-per-click, because it's got keyword search volumes in there. And it is truly invaluable for you to be able to judge one phrase versus another. Now, one cautionary tale on the keywords tool is there's a lot of cases where Google will come back and say, this search term or this search phrase has 0 search, and it's false. I know it's false because you actually receive data or traffic into a website for that phrase, and Google's showing it to us via Google Analytics and Google Search Console. So the search volumes, take with a grain of salt, but know that they are an indicator of what is happening and what kind of volumes people are searching for a given phrase. My next one, and one we're going to look at today and how I use it, is the Moz toolbar. A lot of people don't use this because they don't even realize it's available, but it's just a little add-on that I have in Firefox that I jump over and I use it for competitive research. What it does is it helps you show you what people are targeting for keywords, and it shows you what they're doing wrong so you know whether or not you can beat them. And that's truly, truly important. My last tool that's again also free is the Yoast plugin for WordPress. There's Yoast, there's All-in-One, there's a number of other ones, but really, out of the existing plugins in the market today, Yoast is definitely the best one. And I know he's gotten a lot of flack lately, the organization, for their latest upgrade, but for what we have on the market today, that is a great tool to use. It does provide the best suggestions for optimization, and right now I put it on every website that we have. Okay, additional tools. The first page I gave you were really, really good ones. Here's some more that are also of great value. Google Trends. It does have some data depending on what the search term is, so like related searches and things that are starting to trend with more search. The caution on this, though, it doesn't give you very much data, right? You're only going to get like 5 or 6. But what I do like to see is, and I learned this with my old industry, is that over time a search phrase can be degraded and kind of go away, and another one can take up in its place. So great example is you could look at trends for WordPress, Drupal, and Joomla and combine them to see how that search trend has changed over time. And you'll definitely see some shifts in those. And I've literally seen in other industries search terms just completely really go away, and other ones come and take its place. And there was one from my old industry, and I'm blanking on what it was, but it was replaced by CRM software. And the search term before that was really, really popular, and it just disappeared. Another one is Web 2.0. Remember that term? That was very popular for a while, and it just disappeared. So Google Trends will help you see that. Alexa and SpyFu and WooRank and SEMrush and SimilarWeb are all tools that will give you competitive information, right? They show different types of data and different presentations, but if you're a visual person and you like graphs and charts, they're going to show you a great summary of your competitors and the type of data that is available, like how much are they using page search versus organic? What are their top keywords? Who are their competitors? What are their top pages? That's really, really good information for you to understand the competitive makeup and to know who you could potentially model after with what they're doing or who you could potentially beat. And we're going to look at a few of those today so you can actually see the raw data. Some even more free tools is Bing Webmaster Tools, and Bing's a good solid web search engine. I really should use it more than I do. I've just been so reliant on Google for so many years, and I just can, I understand the data in Google and I trust it, and so I do use it, but I do overlook the Bing Webmaster Tools. And if you don't have a Bing Webmaster Tools account, you should, and you should submit your XML sitemap to your website just like you would to Google. You definitely don't want to dismiss Bing. You want to get traffic from them because they do send some solid traffic over to the site. Keyword Tool IO is an alternate to the Google AdWord Planner, and it will provide you some good alternative keywords so you can use that to build your seed list. You put in one phrase and it can give you back a bunch of variations for that phrase, and it'll kind of help develop the seed list and things that you're not really thinking of that could be very good potential keywords for your website or blog. Screaming Frog is for the data lovers, and it's a tool that you can actually put on your desktop. The UI of it is a bit challenging. It's really old looking, and I downloaded it. It was great data, but it's, again, data I could find elsewhere, so it's not something that I use. Although if you're very data focused and you like things on your desktop, it would be a good thing to try out. It's free, so it's worth to give it a spin. Majestic and Moz Open Site Explorer, more information that you can get link history and link data for either yourself or your competitors. And then finally we have the My Business listing from Moz, which gives you some local information, like local directories and listings. So if you are a local type of business or you are serving clients who are locally focused, this is a great resource for you because you can kind of get a good quick landscape of where they land in local directories, which is important for smaller organizations or companies that have a small reach geographically. Okay, so I tell you there's a lot of tools, and you're probably questioning really if I'm telling you the truth because, really, can you get a lot free? You can, and I want to show you some. Before we step into the tools, though, I want to remind you that these tools should be used through your entire process, right? Yesterday, I talked through the process that I go through. I gave you a 1 through 10 step list that I utilize for my search engine optimization from start to finish. These tools are going to be used throughout that process. I use them for the existing website audit to really say, okay, where does my website at? Where am I strong at? Where am I weak at? Where can it potentially improve? I use them from competitive analysis to see where I can win. You know, what keywords should I be considering? What kind of backlink should I build? That type of thing. For keyword research, Google AdWords and the keyword tool IO, very good, will help you figure out volumes and find your sweet spot. And then as you continue to check your ranking and see how you're faring, Google Search Console is going to be a really great tool for that, and it'll help you reverse engineer where you're at and potentially where you're winning and how you can use that on other phrases. Okay, so SimilarWeb is an example, SimilarWeb is a good example of a very visual tool. This is an example of Epicor, and we'll look at this live. Just so you know, so my old industry was enterprise software, which is ERP, and it's really boring because it's business software. But it did have a very competitive landscape from a search example, because it was companies like SAP and Oracle and Microsoft and Epicor and Infor, who all really had very large marketing budgets, very large teams, SEO teams, and they used them because, you know, they're massive, and I want to show you where you can have some holes and where you can actually beat them. So if you're just by chance Epicor on this call, my apologies to you for poking at you when you're not here to defend yourself. But so from a visual standpoint, what do we see right away? On the left-hand side of the screen, we're seeing organic keywords, so keywords that Epicor is scoring on, right, for free, and they're not paying for. And then right next to that, we see paid keywords, which they're paying for their own words or their own company name, which I always find entertaining when people do that. But you do get to see the breakup of organic versus paid search. So about 16% of their search is coming from pay-per-click. And that, to me, is important because so pay-per-click, if you look at the words that they're targeting with pay-per-click, you know that's where they're not doing well organically, or at least if they're planning it properly, it's where they're not doing well organically. Again, that's opportunities for holes in places where you can beat them. On the right-hand side, it's showing you traffic coming into their website and then traffic leaving their website and going someplace else. These are opportunities for inbound links and driving some referral traffic to your own website. And again, SimilarWeb's got more data, and we're going to look at it in just a second. SEMrush is one I like a lot because it presents similar data but in a different method and a different presentation. I like the tabular format that it gives you because it's easier for me to digest. I like that it gives you main competitors, and it's kind of giving you a keyword landscape at a high level of those competitors. So again, it gives, so if you know Epicor is your competitor, but you didn't know SysPro was a competitor, this is leading you over there and saying, oh, look who's scoring well. Let me go check out them in search because there might be something there that I can learn from. On the right-hand side of the screen, it's showing you the number of keywords that they're ranking on, their traffic estimates, and the cost of that traffic. And I like this data because if you line up competitors, maybe you've got 10 top competitors, you can use this kind of data to see who's really doing well, and that helps you figure out who you want to really spend some time investigating. Okay, SpyFu I've used for a very long time, and they've really improved their user interface and the way they present the data. I like this one because of the presentation and the data. It is similar to some of the other ones, but look on the bottom left-hand of the screen. It shows you how many keywords somebody has on page 1 and how many just fell off. It shows you the age of their domain, and the age of a domain is important. It is, you know, the longer history you have with the search engines, the better you are in the algorithm because it shows that you've been around and that you're established. The SEO value, the click value, 52,000, shows you that they're strong, that they do have a lot of value from an SEO standpoint. And then it gives you, again, data on organic versus paid, as well as the potential pay-per-click cost. I don't know how accurate this is, but I can tell you that when I look at these reports and I compare it to websites that I'm very familiar with and I know their traffics, a lot of times it's really close. The keyword universe shows you how many keywords they're potentially ranking on in total and not just pay one, which 6,100 is a lot of keywords, so that's definitely a strong competitor. Okay, so let's take another look at, before we do this, we're going to go into the live internet, so bear with me 1 second. Let's minimize down the presentation. Okay, and let's look at some of the tools that we just talked about. I'm going to start with Google Search Console because I think that this is so important, and I told you earlier that this is the one area where people don't have accounts and they're missing out on a lot of valuable data. So this is the screen that I use the most inside this tool, and it's called Search Analytics. And you can click data on or off with these little guys at the top. I like to have them all on because I think it's really valuable data. What this is showing is where your website activity takes place inside the Google search results screen. It is not necessarily what's inside your website, it's what's happening in search. It's for a limited amount of time, and that's one of the only negatives about it. It'll cap the amount of time it shows data for, and it'll cap the total number of keywords and pages it's going to show you. But don't let that dissuade you because this is exceptionally good data. So this is showing me on the left phrases that this website is ranking for. This is a hunting website. It targets taxidermists and outfitters. And if you don't like hunting and that type of thing, I apologize, but this was a good example that was safe to show to a large pool of audience as we have today. So you can see the number of clicks coming into the website. The impressions is for each phrase that it's showing, how many times is it showing up in Google search over this time frame? And then a click-through rate to show that, so the Weldon Creek Outfitters has a click-through rate of 2%. So really, when someone sees that in search, they're only clicking through 2% of the time. However, if you look at Ohio taxidermist lists, people click through 28% of the time. You want a high click-through rate. So this is one of those areas where I said you can reverse engineer what's working. You look at those pages that have a high click-through rate, and you kind of look at what's showing for the meta title and meta description to see if you can learn what you did there and apply it to some of the other pages within your site. Here's an important one, the column right here. Position. This is your average position for that search within Google. And a lot of people are probably thinking to themselves right now, well, I can just go in and search that in Google and know that myself. But you can't, because here's why. Google presents search many, many different ways. The results are presented based on your geographical location, your search history, if you're signed into Google, who do you follow on Google+, what type of result is it. So even though you see something one way, you may see something totally different if you go to someone else's computer, whether it be in your office or in another state or country. So that's why I like this position, because of the personalized nature of search that can really misguide you. This is what, Google's telling you what your average rank is. So and you can sort it by any different ways. You can sort it by click-through rate, by position. What I like to do from a reverse engineering standpoint is to say, okay, where am I ranking high? Right? You look at those pages and that content and you see what you did to figure out what you did right. Now if you're trying to figure out what type of keywords you may like to focus on that you're not already ranking on, reverse the position of search. This is showing you endless opportunities of keywords. When we talked yesterday about building your keyword seed list, and we're going to talk more in depth about that tomorrow, this is where you should come. If you want to figure out what blog posts could you write about, guess what? Log cabin gifts. Google's showing you somewhere in search for it, but you really don't have any page or content for it. That might make a really good blog post because Google's already associating that phrase to your website. This is great information, and if you ask yourself, what's important to Google, just look at the left-hand side of this screen. Links to your site, internal links, mobile usability. That was a question we had at the end of yesterday's presentation, is how important mobile is. Well, guess what? If Google's giving you this information in their record of your account, it is very important. So make sure that you're aware of it. Index status, content keywords. I could go on. This is a whole webinar in itself. But if you don't have this account, after you get off this call, do yourself a favor, sign up for it, and get your XML sitemap in here and start utilizing this data. Okay, moving on to Google Analytics. A lot of people have Google Analytics. A lot of small businesses have it but never look at it. You need to make sure that you occasionally look at it, and you can set up reports to come to yourself automatically to force you to look at the data. People asked yesterday, how important is performance? And again, we talked about mobile. Well, here's a custom dashboard I have set up that from Google Analytics data that is showing me page load times. It's also showing me mobile page load times. There should be no question on whether or not mobile is important. Google's giving us this data. It's allowing me to set up a custom dashboard with it. It's telling me it's very important. Don't discount it. Just additional data you can get, who's coming to your website, what resolution, if you're redesigning your website and you want to know what you need to worry about from screen resolution. There's so much information that you can get here. And I have just 3 custom reports set up inside this particular account's dashboard, but you can have a ton of them, and there's actually a template library that Google Analytics offers that you can go grab templates and just drop them in. Bounce rate, very important. I mean, again, we could spend a long time in here, but this is great information, and it's information that you should be utilizing to continue to optimize your website and even to do the strategic planning that we talked about yesterday. Okay, let's look at some of the examples that I gave you for some competitive data. So Upperware.com was the website that I had the report showing for. It's a very large website again. This is SimilarWeb. I just want to briefly show you some of the information. I like this one for this right here, the traffic source. What this is showing me is similar data that you can find for your own website in Google Analytics, but it's showing you on your competitors. So if you want to know how Epicor is getting their content, this little tool is showing you that 48% of it comes from direct, which means they've got other advertising, email campaigns, trade shows, references on the internet, and people are seeing their name and then coming directly to the website. 21% is referrals, so that could be other websites or blogs or media references linking into the website. Only 27% comes from organic search. That is a really low number compared to the other websites that I view. A lot of times it's 50 to 75%. But what this tells me about this company is their marketing budget has not a ton going towards organic search, but a whole lot going to other marketing channels. And it again shows you that these are opportunities where you can beat them. Very few coming from social. So again, it's an opportunity. You could focus your efforts if you were in the land of ERP really on social media and try to beat them in that capacity. Another tool is SEMrush. Very good graphical data. I mean, there's those tables that I really liked with their top organic search terms and the distribution. And then there's just a bunch of additional information you can see over on the left that you can continue to explore. And again, these references are all in the presentation, so you can download them after we get done today. Here was one that I did like, was FIFO. I showed you this chart at the top and this data, but there's a whole ton more available to you if you can just continue to scroll down, both for organic and for paid. Great, great, great data. So as you build your seed list, as you look at competitors and you try to decide where you could win or where you could potentially run into stumbling blocks, this is great information because it really shows you the competitive landscape that you're dealing with. One thing I do love about SpyFu is it shows you data over time, and it will compare it to algorithm changes, the major algorithm changes with Google. So here's Panda right here, and there's Penguin, and you can see that this website took a bit of a hit when Penguin hit. So it's just really good competitive information. Okay, so that's the competitive information I wanted to show you. Now I want to show you what I do when I'm looking further into search and I'm looking at actual websites, because this is a great tool that you can use throughout the process. ERP software is a phrase that I targeted years and years ago, both with my old company's website and then some clients that I've had at WebSavvy, and one of the clients sits on this page today, and we will ignore them because of my relationship with them. But if I Google ERP software, which is a very high volume phrase, and people will pay probably $25 to $50 for pay-per-click for that phrase because it does produce a sale of anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million per sale. So it's definitely a good term. You can see that Wikipedia has the top placement, and a lot of people will ignore Wikipedia, but as you scale down, you're going to see a mix, right? And notice that this little box is popping in, which is newer this year, and Google's giving that type of information to, which prevents people from even going to your page. It just makes that page one much more competitive to get, but it doesn't mean that it's not possible. I mentioned earlier the phrases of the autocomplete, and yesterday I mentioned the related terms. There those guys are. When you're doing keyword research and you're building your seed list, don't forget these guys. They're important because people do use them, right? So I start here when I'm looking at information. I want to see who's on page one. I want to know whether or not I can beat who's here. And I look to see the results for ERP search to see what's showing. And it's things like, is ERP software inside the URL, or are they missing that? And then I start looking at individual websites there. Epicor, who I picked apart, is not on page one, but guess where they're showing? They're showing on page two, and I'm going to show you why. So when you go to page two, you can see them here. And actually, when I looked earlier, there was another page that they had that was showing as well. If I go over to the actual ERP software page for Epicor, they actually have a couple of pages for ERP. And when I click on this page right here, it does, even though the menu says ERP software, it actually doesn't take me to the ERP software page. It takes me to another page. And unfortunately, that page is competing with this one. And sometimes when you Google ERP software, the other page comes up, and sometimes this one comes up. What that tells me when I'm looking at this from a competitive standpoint is that Google's confused. I said yesterday, one of the principal things that you need to do is have a clear path for the search engines to know what page to go to for a given phrase. Epicor is not doing that. They're competing against themselves for the same keyword phrases. They're confusing the search engines, and they're getting degraded in that process. Here's some other things that they're doing. If we look at my Moz tool, which is this guy right here, and you can download that and add it to your browser, click on this little binocular guy, and you can go in and you can see their page title, their page description, their H1, alt text information. You can see things like, do they have canonical links? Do they have anything in there for meta robots? It's really good information. I use it all the time with competitors. But when I look at this, and you would expect, based on what I was saying yesterday, your phrase for your focused phrase should be inside your page. It should be inside your URL, which it is right there. It should be in your page title. It is right there. It should be in your meta description. But guess what? It's not. They've switched over to ERP system, which is a related phrase, but it's not really what they were targeting in this page. The H1 isn't the phrase that they're targeting. They've stuck it in at the H2. These are some of the reasons why they're struggling, right, with ranking on page one. When we look at the page itself, they're bolding phrases, and that, my friends, was a tactic that people used 10 years ago with SEO. It doesn't apply today. What that is a spam trigger to the search engines. There's no reason for that ERP software or ERP systems to be bolded on this page. They do not provide value to the user. Therefore, it just degrades the usability of the page, and it's going against them with SEO. So all of this information, which I went through it quickly, but it's all giving me data points where I can say, you know what, they've got issues. And if they've got issues on this most important page to them, which is probably one of their most coveted keywords, I know that there's issues throughout the site. And then I start to look at other people. If I look at IQMS, which is another competitor in this space, this is their ERP page, right? They actually show up at the bottom of Google when I search for it. But if we look, their URL, which it will be hard for you to see, but it doesn't have ERP software in there. It just has ERP. And we can scan through the page, and they're doing the same bolded thing that Epicor does, because apparently people in this industry have outdated ERP knowledge. But it's giving you an idea, again, of areas where you can beat larger corporations. If I go into the Moz tool and I start looking at it, I can see that ERP software is in their page title, They actually have ERP software in their description as well, and they're H1. So they are doing some things better than Epicor, which is probably one of the reasons why they are on page 1 and not on page 2 like Epicor. But here's a funny thing, is they're using keywords. In the US, Bing and Google do not use meta keywords. It is an option in Yoast, and if you are focused on search within the US, turn it off. The only thing it does is tell your competitors what you are trying to optimize for. The other thing it does is it can be a trigger to the search engines in a negative fashion. So in the US, just as a recap, we don't use them. There are search engines overseas in the Asia Pacific region who do use them, but most of the people on this call today do not focus, and that is not your target demographic. So please turn this off. It'll serve you better in the end because you'll stop giving competitive information away. When I do competitive research for my clients and I look at large websites in pharmaceutical or legal or app providers, you would be surprised at how many times information is showing up here. And I would say it is probably 75% of the time in large organizations because they just don't know to turn it off. But these are opportunities for you because you can figure out what they're potentially searching for or trying to rank for, and you can see that there's holes in their process that you can utilize and you can target against them. Okay, so I went through a number of tools, and they're really, really my favorite ones. In this Moz toolbar, again, it's just Google MOZ toolbar, and you'll be able to find it. It's a great tool that you definitely do want to use. Let me skip down to where we're at. All right, let me get back to my place. Okay, I would like to revisit where we were at yesterday. We went, if you're new to us today, this slide we went through yesterday, we talked about it in depth. I want to just revisit it today because as I went through the tools that I use and that are available, I want you to see what really is here for you. And now think about this. On these 10 steps and those tools I went through, where could you use those tools in this process? You're going to use them at number 1 with keyword research, number 2, mapping keywords to your content. You're going to be, and by the way, that will be Google Search Console, because you're going to use Google Search Console to go see what pages rank for a given keyword. And why we didn't go into that today because I didn't have enough time, that data is available for you. Number 4, optimize your content. You're going to use Yoast or another SEO plugin tool. Number 7 and number 8, you're going to use them both there as well for finding off-site opportunities for link building, even though I said to use that very cautiously. There's tools that I showed you today that will give great information for that. And then checking rank progress. There are tools that I showed you that are outside of Google, but then going back to Google Search Console, that is another really, really good tool for figuring out your rank, where you're ranking and where you can improve. From yesterday, some of the things that we said was remember your keys to success. It's 3 basics: research and plan, create and optimize, and strengthen that process by going back and looking to see what you've done, what's worked, reverse engineering what worked, and applying it to the rest of your content. So please make sure that as you go through these, you're keeping that in mind, both with my 10 steps and then the high-level 3 steps that I wanted just to review once again. And as when you get off this webinar and you have time, whether it's today or it's tomorrow or it's even if it's next week, and you're going through those tools that I showed you, I really, really want you to come back and keep referencing this slide. I said yesterday, if you do nothing else, take a screenshot of this slide. Keep coming back and trying to remind yourself where you can use those tools within this process, and then apply that to what you're doing every day. It will make an impact, because you're, instead of just using emotion or reactive type of mode for your decision process with SEO, you're actually using very solid data, and you're getting yourself into a strategy, and that strategy is where you're actually going to make sure that you win. Some additional tools to boost your knowledge. There are some SEO news websites. I really like Search Engine Land and Search Engine Watch, the Moz blog, and Search Engine Roundtable. And then number 2 and number 3, I'm giving you some Twitter handles for people that I follow on Twitter. I've had people ask me many times, how do I make sure that I'm up to date with what's happening in the SEO in the search industry and making sure that I'm staying, up to date on current changes and things like that. I don't spend a ton of time doing this, and the reason I can get away with that is because I follow people like Danny Sullivan or Rusty Brick or Dwayne Forrester and Matt McGee, because they do provide really, really good information. Sugar Ray's another one. They'll tweet out articles of importance. They'll tweet out changes that they've noticed or announcements from the search engines. So you don't have to stay right on the edge of the search engines and everything that they're doing. You just need to make sure that some of these people are in your feed on Twitter, and you need to check Twitter once in a while. And when you see them pop up with some information, click through and follow it, because they'll give you a really, really good summary of what's available and what you can learn today and what's new in the industry. Okay, Corey, that is the end of my presentation for today. I wanted to make sure that we had at least 15 minutes for questions, because I figured that we would have a lot of good questions for some people. So I'm going to turn it over to you and your team and to see what we've got going on in the chat forum.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rebecca. I know the tools are going to be awesome for people to dive in and learn more about. So I asked kind of get your questions ready and start posting them here. While you're doing that, I do have a couple of questions that were asked before that I posted, but I just want to give a couple of details. So there'll be this is being recorded. The slides will be available for you afterwards. If you're listening to my voice, then you're on the email list that'll get the updates for that we're doing every day. So a couple things. The first question, Rebecca, was about Google services. And basically, so for instance, with working with us, we have our Google Search Console, our Google Analytics set up. How do you go about doing that with clients to make sure, like, for instance, they own the account, and then you give access? How does that all work, and how's your process for being able to get that kind of information?
That's a great question. So clients by default want to give you their Google access. And by that I mean they just want to hand you their password and their ID. I discourage that, and a step in my process is whenever we're in an SEO project with somebody, I have a standard project plan that I kick off in Basecamp, and a line item, there's a line item for analytics, and there's a line item for Google Search Console, and it tells them to please add me as a user, and I give them my Google ID. Right, so I don't really give them a chance to hand over their password and their ID to Google because I don't want it. I just automatically push my email in front of them and ask them to add me, and that usually works. I mean, once in a while you might have to give them a link to show them, where to go to do it, and there's usually a how-to you just grab on the internet and send over to them. But definitely encourage them to do that. And the other nice thing is they can cut you at any time. If they don't want to, continue to give you access, they can cut you off, and they don't have to worry about changing their own password.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay. So you talked about the Yoast SEO multiple keywords thing. You make sure to turn that off in Yoast, correct? Or you just do not, encourage your clients not to use multiple focus keywords?
So there's two things in Yoast now. There's the ability to have meta keywords, which is what we saw IQMS was doing. I tell everybody to turn it off. If you are not competing in the Asia Pacific region on those search engines, turn that off because it does not do you any value. It does more damage than good in the US. So that is a global setting in Yoast that you can turn off. And now the newest release of Yoast, I don't know if it's the free version or the premium version, has an option to have multiple keywords. I encourage people not to do that as well, and the reason is because most people struggle just getting one keyword optimized onto a page. Don't add in more because it just distracts from it.
Okay. So one question said, you indicated that you should not bold some terms. What about business names? Where do you want to potentially make the name stand out in text, or where do you want to make the name stand out in text?
Yeah, so we do a lot of custom design with people too, and clients will send over content that has a ton of bolded text or a ton of italicized text, and really what that does is it makes it difficult to read the page. So the only time you should really be using a bold is if it's going to be providing value to the user. Bolding a company name or bolding a keyword does not help the user. That helps you try to push out to the user what you want them to see, but that's not necessarily what they want to see. right? They want to read the entire page or scan the entire page and see what's important to them. So like if you've got a sentence with a colon and a bulleted list underneath it, if you want to bold the item with a colon to help that stand out, great, do that. You know, if there's something of importance that you're trying to put emphasis on, like a phrase or a sentence, bold that, but don't bold keywords. It's old school SEO, and it makes it really difficult for the person to read the page.
So I love this question because you're the consummate pro. I mean, I've seen your process from a client's perspective, Rebecca, and I think it's going to be so helpful because you're doing this at such a high level. This question is just, I'm eager to ask it. So some people say it takes weeks or months for SEO changes to start showing in the results in organic search. What do you tell your clients? And I'm saying this with a smile. So what do you tell your clients who are expecting more immediate results?
Yeah, Corey's smiling with that because he wants to know the same answer. You know, when do you get to see outcome? And it's gonna drastically vary by website and by industry, right? And by content and the volume of content that you're changing or that you're publishing. So, for example, if we do a relaunch with a website and we really do it from scratch and we throw out a bunch of new design and new pages, and we connect the XML sitemap to Google, it is going to take Google a couple of weeks to really go through all that content and to index it and to rank it, right? That's with fresh, new content and in mass. If you're making tweaks and you're optimizing content, it is going to take a couple of months for it really to see where you're going to land. When I publish a new product, like a new theme, it takes me probably about 2 weeks to know whether or not I'm going to rank on that keyword or not, and whether I need to add more love to it. More optimization or more social shares and link building. But from a client perspective, set the expectations that it's not going to be a month and it's not going to be 2 months. It's going to be 3-4 months to really be able to work on that process and make sure that you've got enough changes implemented that the search engines can see that and put that into their algorithm and really change where you're ranking.
Awesome. So it's part of the educational process, just saying, I don't have access to the executive committee or the CEO of Google to...
But that's a good point, because I forgot to mention something. You can encourage the search engines to process your changes faster. And the way to do that is to continue to update your site and continue to add content to your site, because what you're doing is every time you're doing that, your XML sitemap is pinging them to come back and visit your website, which gives them another opportunity to more fully digest your content. So if you are working with clients and you want, they're really after you to get quick results, then say, fine, this is what we're going to do. We're going to launch X amount of changes, and then we're going to continue to add changes over time at a solid frequency to get the search engines to keep coming back, and that does make a big difference. We've done it with launches, and I can tell you I've seen firsthand it makes a huge difference.
Part of this, what I'm hearing you say, is basically do what you can control, which is getting good content up there, sitemaps, things like that, the good practices you've been sharing with us. And then, it's up to them to ultimately decide, but trying to do your best on your part and with these minimals or these
Yes. Yep. And share it on social. Get people to share it on social. That always helps as well.
Cool. Okay. So I love this question. For someone who is just starting their first blog or business website, which tool would you say is most important for competitive research prior to launch? I would probably add to this question, for someone just starting their first blog or business site, what's your first step in the whole process to make sure, you're getting a good SEO strategy from the beginning?
Yeah, so, so for brand new website or brand new blog or even a new small business, when you launch the website, make sure that you have Google Analytics and Search Console set up and connected to the website, first and foremost, because that's going to give you the data to move forward with. From a competitive standpoint, that's going to be twofold. It depends on if you know your competitors. If you know your competitors, I would load the Moz toolbar and start using that and explore their website on a manual basis, because that's going to give you the most in-depth, intimate look at their content and what they're doing, right? And you can't get that from the tools. If you don't know who your competitors are and you need to have that information presented to you, SpyFu would be a really good one, and probably SEMrush would be another good one to use. Either one of those, because then that's going to kind of give you the competitors and help you get a jump start that way.
Okay. If you switch your site from HTTP to HTTPS, will this affect your SEO?
It can, yes. Great question. Excellent question, whoever asked that. This is something that we did probably those last 3 months at Web Savvy. And, because I'm data-driven and I'm very strategic on things, I wouldn't let a programmer or coder touch anything on our website or do anything until we researched it, right? So what I literally did was I went and I Googled, that process, and I found articles on what to be cautious of, what things to put in place. And then I gave those articles to our coding team and said, I need you to read through these, and I need you to create to-dos for all the steps that we have to go through in this process. And there were steps we had to go through, right? We had to make sure that we had redirects in place, and because we've got the store and we've got the payment gateways, there were additional steps that we had to go through. So do I know all of them? I don't, but there was probably like 10 to 15 to-dos I know that the coding team had in place for them and for me that we had to go through to make sure that we were protecting ourselves from SEO and we were protecting the user experience.
Outstanding. What tool for sitemaps do you use?
I use the inherent XML generation, sitemap generation inside Yoast. And the reason I like that is because it will automatically update when something inside WordPress is updated, and it uses that same data. If you're not using WordPress, you are challenged with this, because when I look at larger organizations' sitemaps, they stink. They're not accurate, they're not getting refreshed, they don't have dates on them. So that's something that with WordPress we are very fortunate to have good tools that allow us to be able to create that data effortlessly.
Okay, and the follow-up to that, another question was asked kind of in the sitemap category is it critical to have sitemaps on a website? I've heard conflicting reports.
Okay, so let's answer this question directly from Google. In Google's Getting Started Guide, I gave a link to that yesterday. It's a PDF. Inside that PDF, they tell you to have an HTML sitemap and an XML sitemap. They specifically tell you and they explain to you the difference. So if Google is going to go through and explain to you the difference between the two different versions and why they're important and why you need them, you need them. Just make sure you have them.
Gotcha. Okay, so this particular webinar is about tools, so if you guys have questions related to the tools and the content that was shared today, make sure you put those back in the chat room so I'm trying to go through and sort these as best as possible, but I have one more question while you guys formulate your questions about the tools and the content that was shared today. How do you rank e-commerce sites with products that have minimal word count?
No, that's hard. Right? That's really hard, and that's why when you visit our theme store, you're going to see that our product pages have more than 200, texts. There's more content than just that little short description and WooCommerce gives you. We use that additional area that's provided, and we've taken out the tabs in our display to make sure that we do have a good full-length page. But honestly, this comes back to the usability question. If you have an e-commerce site that has products with very short descriptions, it's going to be hard for you to entice a visitor to actually want to buy, right? So, and Google knows that. So having a product page with longer text doesn't need to monopolize the page, but it needs to be there for people to reference who want to reference it. It serves both the usability for the visitor as well as organic search.
Okay. Looking through here again, so...
One thing to note, Corey, is that just as a reminder, as we went through this today, the bottom of the chat the chat page has a place that there's a form to submit questions. We would love to hear what questions you have about SEO, and if we get a lot of good ones, maybe I can talk Corey into let me come back, and we can answer those in another webinar.
Absolutely. I mean, as you guys have seen, like she's been demonstrating just rapid-fire questions, answering them so fluidly, and this is why she's the one doing the webinars this week. And just a reminder, we're on day 2 of 4 days of SEO basics. And as she said, I just put a link into the chat room over at iThemeschat.com to the form that you can go to hit a question. If your question wasn't answered, we definitely want to see those. We keep a chat log and all that kind of stuff, but to make sure we have a record of those, because I'm a human and I err for sure. And so just as a reminder, tomorrow, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, and Friday, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, that's where you're going to be able to come back and learn more from Rebecca about SEO. And the slides and the replay from yesterday is below the chat room, iThemeschat.com. You'll see SEO week, day 1, webinars, replay, and slides where you can get all that information. And then if you're hearing my voice, you'll be able to, we're going to send an email as soon as the replay and the slides are ready for you, so you won't miss anything. But some great questions today, Rebecca, and let me just kind of scroll through here and make sure.
Throw another one at me.
Alrighty.
We have 4 minutes left.
Does video boost ranking?
Okay, so this is a good question too. When you have a page, Google likes your page to have solid content, right? Rich content. And I said yesterday that Google's content involves images and videos and text and file attachments. So yes, video and images help a page, and even down to the file name and the file name itself that you use before you import it, and the text description you give to that image, and the video, they all help. And don't forget that YouTube is a property of Google, and Google pushes YouTube videos right into the search results page where there's a number of really solid videos. So yes, video is wonderful for SEO. It's wonderful to have on your site because it's good for usability. There's people like my husband who hates to read. He will go to a video every single time, and he'll sit and watch a video forever, where I'll never watch it and I'm always going to read. But having that video, it enhances the usability of the site. It gives your content more depth and more quality. So yes, absolutely. If you've got the capability to do videos, have videos.
Paul asked that you mentioned that we need to have both XML and HTML sitemaps. What do you do for the HTML sitemap in case that there are thousands or even tens of thousands of pages?
Yes, don't have tens of thousands of pages. Give it the top levels that are important to the user, and then let them explore down. Right? You don't want to overwhelm a user with an HTML sitemap that has 1,000 links, or you don't even want to have more than 100. It's not going to be of value. So pick and choose what you put out on there, because you want it to be digestible to the search engines and the user alike.
Awesome. Okay, one last question in the final minutes, and I'll give some wrap-up stuff. But how much text do you suggest, or is there a minimum word count that you suggest on the page that you're trying to get ranked, Rebecca?
Okay, so this is where the Yoast tool and I disagree, because the Yoast tool for WordPress is going to give you a much smaller number than I am. The older version, I think, was like 300 or 500 characters. I think it's 300 characters, and I go way over, and I tell clients to go way over. Today's content is long form, right? It's longer in nature. We explore topics in more depth. We use headers and subheaders and bullets to be able to break out that content so it's easy to read. And there's a lot of articles on the internet from really well-known and well-educated and just knowledgeable marketers who have done analysis to show that people both read and share, and search engines rank longer content. So if you think you're going to have a page or a blog post with 300 characters or 300 words, I guess it is, rank on page 1, you are crazy. It is not going to happen. You've got to invest in creating some long-form content. And it is timely, and it can be challenging, and it draws in your resources, but it will be worth it because you're actually going to show up in search, and people are going to find it of value, and then they're going to share it on social media, which is even going to drive more traffic. So I don't have a magical number, but I'm going to tell you it's not 500, right? And it's not 300.
Enough, right?
Yeah. You just got to go explore the topic, and it's going to vary by the type of content for sure, and just make it a value.
Well, that wraps up today's webinar, and we thank Rebecca again for sharing her experience and expertise. We've got day 3 and 4 tomorrow, day 3 tomorrow and day 4 Thursday. Tomorrow's topic is going to be driving success with an SEO plan, research and focus. Now, I'm excited for her to be able to share her technique and her process. She's got an incredible process that she's honed over the years that we, in our process with her, we've been thinking, oh man, we want to change all this stuff, and she kept saying, stop until you plan. And tomorrow she's going to share 4 critical steps needed to properly plan your SEO. And so you're not going to want to miss that. Thursday is going to be weaving SEO into your WordPress service offering. Now, I'm telling you, every time I see her unique way of doing client work with SEO, I just think, wow, you're the best in the business I've ever seen. For one, she knows her stuff. 2, she's not trying to pretend to be somebody she's not. 3, you can just tell from the last 2 days that she knows her stuff. She's been doing this for a long time. She's the consummate pro that we should all for sure emulate. So anyway, you're not going to want to miss those, and you'll be getting emails and reminders about the webinar replays and the slides going on, but be sure you mark your calendar for the next 2 days, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, to join Rebecca Gill here for SEO Week. Thanks everybody for a great day, and Rebecca, thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.